Let me pass the word first to Mr. Hoffmeister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the idea I'd like to present is about the harmonization of our European electoral codes. European elections are very important for our common democracy because they legitimize our governance system and guarantee freedom on our continent. That's obvious. However, the fact that in 2014 only 42% of the European electorate voted shows that something in our democracy isn't working right. At the moment, we don't have a real European democracy. What we have are 28 very different national democracies, I would say, that happen to come together every 5 years. This becomes clear when one realizes that Europeans don't vote on the same day, that the electoral threshold is still very different in member states, and that we don't have a uniform age as of which young people across Europe can stand at European elections. Young people fail to engage in politics in part because they rarely see their peers or politicians of a similar age elected as representatives. And all of these differences across member states make it more complicated for normal citizens to understand the EU. And when something's complicated, people often don't engage, which leaves us with a low voters turnout that ultimately threatens the legitimacy of European governance as a whole. This is why you, AFRIC committee members, need to reform the system profoundly. Transnational lists failed, which is a pity indeed. However, we should not give up. We should still aim for the full harmonization of our voting rules for European elections. It makes little sense to have different voting systems for one common election. So let's finally harmonize our rules. But actually, we could go even further and be more radical. When it comes to European elections, we should leave the national boundaries behind and create cross-border constituencies. Imagine having a bilingual candidate that is able to bring both populations from both sides of the border together and motivate them to vote for the same person for the same cause. This would be so innovative, so new that in the world that it would inevitably attract media attention from all sides, create a European discourse, a European identity, and foster participation in European elections. The youth feels European, so give us the chance to vote in a European way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the questions. I'll start with you, Mr. Chair. So the added value of the under 30 years old. So first of all, I'd like to say it's not about the age in general. It's about someone knowing what he's talking about or she's talking about. However, seeing, at least for people from my generation, seeing young people in a directly elected body on a European level would be something that encourages us. Because right now, I would say that the feeling exists that Brussels and the EP and maybe the institution as a whole are quite far away. The older generation is the one taking decisions for us, for our future as well. And that we are, of course, represented, but not really, because we don't see our generation's voice really there. That's very subjective, of course. I don't want to generalize. But having more young people, more young politicians, would be something that would encourage more young people to engage in politics, I would say. Your second question was about harmonization and over-centralization. So, imposing something. I think you know better than everyone that harmonization has offered, in many cases, in most cases, an added value, whether it's effectiveness or other things. The question that needs to be asked here is, how do we want to elect? Do we want to elect as nationals, as citizens of Germany, of France, of Bulgaria, of Greece, or do we want to vote as Europeans? And my answer to that is, I want to vote on a European scale at European elections as a European citizen. And having multiple 28, 27 different voting systems leaves us with something I would call that the citizens are not entirely equal. Let me give you an example. If a German citizen goes to Croatia, does holidays on the 23rd of May, and wants to vote, he can by letter. If a Slovak citizen, for example, goes to the same hotel at the same time, he can't vote because the Slovak national code, if I'm right, does not permit the voting by letter. Is that equality of citizens? I would say no. So nobody wants to impose anything. It's more the question of being equal as European citizens. Thank you for the question. Gracias para la pregunta. I'm going to still speak in English. So I totally do agree with your point of view. Transnational lists are something that could have been very well done. Your question was on political parties, political groups. Because right now, if you ask me, we don't have European political parties. We still have these national, I mean, in Germany, you vote CDU, SPD, FDP. In France, you vote Les Républicains or La République En Marche. Or, in Spain, it's Ciudadanos or whatever. But you don't have this, let's say, European party that is the same, with the same values in each member state. Of course, it's a question of time, I think. And it's difficult because it's history that goes difficult and slow. But that's something maybe we could envisage in the future. The more harmonization of the boundary of political parties and families. Monsieur Durand, je vais parler en français pour vous.
Mr. Durand, I would like to speak French for you. What brings us closer to the European Union? It's the European identity. I am German, but I speak 2 languages at home. Being European is part of my identity. But I'm not the only one. There are many people who have one nationality, and they still feel European. There's no difference there. But I'm part of the Erasmus generation. We take a train from Berlin to Warsaw without border checks. We can go study in another member state without additional costs. And our generation is very aware of this, and we recognize this. And it's specifically this that the European gives us. They make us understand that we are truly European. There you go.
Auf Deutsch für Sie vielleicht nochmal.
Now in German. Mr. Schulz, I agree with what you're saying 120%. I also think it would have been a good thing to have transnational lists as well. I think that the next Parliament will see change. Not only Brexit, because there is a degree of momentum here whereby a lot of things, not only electoral law can be changed, but a lot of things will be on the way down the track and that we're going to have to deal with in my generation. So I fully agree with you, 120%.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffmeister. EU presidency, televised political debate.
We'll see what this is about. So the second idea I would like to propose is on improving the European public space of debate by introducing, I call it a televised political debate before and maybe after each rotating presidency. I believe that we can all agree upon the fact that a common political discourse is constituent for any society and democracy. Frankly, on a European, multilingual and continental scale, it has never been easy to create such a discourse. We have tried with Euronews and channels like Arte, the Franco-German TV channel, however, only with limited success. Therefore, let's think of a new format that is politically more fiery. The current EU presidency rotating system is politically extraordinary and unique. So why don't we put a little more focus on that? Why don't we introduce a televised political debate that takes place every 6 months, where the new Council presidency and the leaders of the EP political groups can discuss and argue about the upcoming priorities? This political talk show would be televised, live-streamed on social media, giving especially young people the possibility to ask questions online, and would also be covered by newspapers. It will, of course, need to be broadcasted all across the continent and will definitely contribute to the European political space of debate. I'm aware that we already have the presidencies appearing in the plenary every 6 months and presenting their programs to the MEPs. This is good and should be continued. But imagine broadcasting a TV show with high-profile politicians from member states and the European Parliament that are known to the European public arguing over European topics in front of the cameras. I believe that this format will contribute to more transparency, more awareness and more political engagement in European affairs. A European public space of debate is essential for our union to work. Let's create this new format and let's give the citizens the opportunity to see what is really going on in Europe. Thank you.
You still have the contribution? Oh, of course.
If you give me 2 minutes, I'll try to be...
As long as you like, within 2 minutes.
Within 2 minutes, I'll try. So, Monsieur Durand, merci pour la question. Alors, oui.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Durand. In 2014, we did have the Spitzenkandidaten.
Continent, mais est-ce que c'est assez?
Was that enough? Frankly, I don't think so. If you really want to get the public involved in the European sphere, once every 5 years is definitely not enough. Every 6 months, every time there's a new council presidency, having this sort of debate might get the public interested. That's where the beating heart of citizens can be encouraged.
Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed. I mean, it's in the hands of the national medias, and you as the Parliament and the Commission has almost no influence in that, and that's good because, you know, freedom of speech. However, giving or trying to establish such a TV debate every 6 months is, I think, an incentive for national medias to actually give a bigger focus on European affairs. Because if our side, Parliament's side, does that every 6 months, and you have a new presidency with new priorities, and people are going to see, the media is going to see that something is moving in Europe. It's not that they don't know, they know, but they just don't cover it. So having this debate from our side with high-profile politicians could be indeed an incentive for national media to cover it. And then we start having a real European public space of debate, which is crucial for our union. That's at least my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.